As I said, we're a little bit discombobulated in this class. It doesn't look like it's making any rhyme or reason. We're not going anywhere. We're running in place. That's all right, do your other classes. We'll get on the treadmill pretty soon. I just have to get this background stuff. So why don't you just get into it? Well, because I think the background stuff is really important. And even though it's been a bit spotty and sketchy, things dribble in. So what should we be doing? Nothing. You don't have to work all the time. Work on your other classes. You know, life is meant to be fun. And sometimes you can absorb things just through fun. So, you know, plowing away, beating away at some stack of something that you probably forget 3 weeks later doesn't necessarily get you anywhere. So just bear with us. You can be looking at Josephus. You can be looking at the stuff from Paul I've been reading to you. Right? So you've got stuff to look at. No point looking ahead in the Gospels, because I'm going to pick out stuff in the Gospels that we'll work on. And I'm not going according to that sheet I handed out. That sheet I handed out is for university consumption, not for your consumption. That's because you're supposed to hand out a sheet. And it's great. You know, I like to play it by ear, wing it. I was coming into the driveway tonight, this morning. It's a good wake-up call, you know, and I was in the right lane turning off of 7th Street into the parking lot. I was the first one in line, so turned in, and first one, there was no one behind me, turned into the parking lot, my thing, parked the car, all getting my books out, and this guy comes up with a sort of, some kind of beret or some other kind of hat on. He said, "Oh, excuse me, sir, do you mind if I tell you something?" I said, "No, what's that?" "You didn't use your turn signal." I said, "Oh yeah, I always use my turn signal." "No, I was watching you. You didn't use your turn signal." I said, "Well, I was only turning right, and I didn't need to use my turn signal." He said, "Well, I was right behind you." I said, "Well, it was good for you then. So you didn't have any problem, right?" so I say, well, I mean, you know, there are some people in the world, I mean, really. Well, I didn't tell you the rest of the exchange. Oh, you want to hear the good part? Well, I said, "You know what you should do?" I said, "You're in the wrong profession. You should join the police force." Yeah. Oh, he said, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean. I hope when I said we'll help you." I said, "Well, I can't remember what I said after that." Anyway, good way to start the day off. So, yeah, we've been reading Paul. And why have we been reading Paul? Because it's a good way to start the study off. The position that I'm, as you're beginning to suspect, coming from is that you really can't understand the Gospels as we have them without understanding people like Paul. Now, we don't have time to read all of Paul in order to get a background for the Gospels. You say, why Paul? Because I think what most people don't know or think or maybe realize or haven't thought about even, that many of Paul's ideas have permeated into the historical Jesus. Therefore, to some extent, undermining, you might even say, if you're mean-spirited, corrupting the portrait of the historical Jesus. In other words, the historical Jesus often sounds like the historical Paul, who never met him, never knew him, and so on, was an upper-class person with a Roman citizenship, etc., 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 etc. So how could a thing like that happen? Because it's called retrospective history. I've been telling you a little bit about that. Retrospective history. Something is, what does retrospective mean? It means someone at a later time, let's say someone is putting things together at 100 AD, let's say, or even 120. I mean, it's hard to say when these traditions first got put in the final form that we now have them, because the ultimate final form was not till the 300s. And in fact, the late 300s, at one of the church councils after the Council of Nicaea. It wasn't even done at the Council of Nicaea, the final form, which Gospels were going to be considered orthodox, the final form of the Gospels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Which letters were going to go in. There are different collections, and I'm not a great history on the tradition of the putting together of the New Testament as we presently have it. But, you know, so you say, oh, well, yeah, but stuff was circulated before that. Oh, yes, sure. Competitive stuff, too. But in addition, let's just say, let's forget all those problems of the 200s and 300s and what was finally accepted to a council sponsored by Constantine and Eusebius. And I told you a little about Eusebius' mindset last time. I have never met such a bigoted mindset in my existence. And if you picked up Eusebius, you would be like horrified. You would think you were reading Joseph Goebbels. You know, I'm not, fortunately Eusebius is not a saint for us, so I don't have to hold back from saying things about that particular approach. But I kid you not, you just have to look at him and you'll see what I mean. He glories in people suffering, he glories in people dying, he glories in all kinds of things as long as they're on the other side. In other words, there's no Christian charity there. There's no love of enemies. There's no any of the things attributed to Jesus in the Gospels in Eusebius. You say, how can that be? Well, that's the question we're trying to answer in these kinds of classes. How can that be? And that's a question you say in the 21st century that, you know, is very meaningful. How can that be? And it's been made more meaningful by the Dead Sea Scrolls. Again, why? Because the Dead Sea Scrolls were put in caves for some reason or other. Probably because the people writing them were seditious or an underground anti-establishment movement of some kind. And they were hidden or deposited or left. We can't be sure, we weren't there, of which of the three it is. But we do know that they were probably undisturbed except for one intrusion in around the year 800 that we know about. They were probably left undisturbed for going on 2,000 years now. In other words, they didn't go through the editorial processes of any establishment group. In particular, they didn't go through the editorial establishment of the Roman Empire. In particular, therefore, well, they didn't even go through, that's probably why they were put in the caves in the first place, so they wouldn't go through, because they wouldn't be acceptable to any editorial establishment. If they had been acceptable to any editorial establishment, you see, you wouldn't deposit them in caves in a quasi